Tonight's story takes you to a time of longships and iron, where the spray of the northern sea tasted of salt, and the clang of steel echoed in the fjords. Before we begin, get comfortable. Pull up your blanket. Breathe slow. Let the warmth of your covers envelop you, and feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Imagine the quiet of the night pressing in, a comforting weight. Now, close your eyes, if you wish, and let your mind drift. Tonight, you are a shadow, a whisper carried on the wind, about to be taught in the unforgiving current of a Viking raid. The first sensation is the cold. Not a gentle, familiar cold of a late autumn evening, but a sudden, piercing chill that rips through your thin sleeping tunic, raising gooseflesh across your skin. It is the cold of the outside, sharp and immediate, even before your eyes have fully opened. Then comes the sound, a distant guttural roar that grows swiftly into a terrifying chorus of shouts. Your eyes snap open, wide and disoriented in the pitch black of your cottage. The air, usually thick with the comforting scent of wood smoke and dried herbs, is now tainted with something acrid, a faint wisp of burning thatch. Your heart begins to pound, a frantic drum against your ribs, sending a dizzying pulse through your temples. You try to push yourself up from your straw pallet, but your limbs feel heavy, unresponsive, tangled in the rough wool blanket. More screams, closer now, and the rhythmic thump of heavy boots on the packed earth just outside your flimsy wooden door. A guttural shout, a language you do not understand, but the intent is clear. Aggression, a terrifying, unbridled fury. You freeze, your breath catching in your throat, every muscle tensed, listening. The door, made of simple planks, splinters with a deafening crack. A rush of cold air, bringing with it the overpowering smell of sweat, brine, and something metallic like fresh blood, floods your small space. His face, though obscured, radiates an aura of grim purpose. You try to move, to crawl further into the shadows, but it's too late. A large, calloused hand clamps down on your arm, fingers like iron bands, squeezing with brutal strength. Pain, sharp and immediate, flares through your shoulder. As you are hauled roughly to your feet, you gasp, a choked sound, trying to pull away, but his grip is unyielding. You are dragged from your cottage, stumbling, your bare feet immediately scraped by the frozen earth and sharp pebbles. The scene that unfolds before your eyes is a nightmare made real. Flames lick at the roofs of your neighbors' homes, painting the familiar village square in hues of orange and black. Screams echo in the night, of terror, of pain, of despair. Figures move through the chaos, dark and menacing, their raised axes catching the firelight. Your mind struggles to comprehend. This cannot be real. This peaceful, sleeping village, suddenly ripped apart, consumed by fire. Other figures are being dragged, pushed, shoved towards the shoreline. Men, women, even children. Their faces are streaked with dirt and tears, eyes wide with incomprehension and fear. Some sob openly, their cries lost in the din. Others are silent, their shock a visible shroud around them. The journey to the shore is a blur of pain and terror. You stumble, fall, are yanked upright again. Your shoulder screams in protest, feeling as though it's being torn from its socket. The ground beneath your feet gives way to cold, wet sand, then the chill of shallow water. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, salt, and the indescribable scent of destruction. Then the ship, it looms in the dim light, a vast dark beast on the water. its single mast rising like a skeletal finger towards the bruised sky. It is long, impossibly sleek, with a fearsome carved figurehead at its bow. Figures move purposefully on its deck, their movements precise and brutal. You are hauled aboard, unceremoniously, a piece of cargo, tossed onto the rough wooden deck. The impact sends a fresh jolt of pain through your body. You land awkwardly, your ribs protesting. The surface beneath you is hard, unyielding, and already slick with dampness. You try to push yourself up, but your limbs feel like lead. You are lying amongst others, a huddled mass of humanity, shivering, groaning, utterly defeated. The air here is heavy, a cloying mix of brine, unwashed bodies, and something metallic, like old blood, that makes your stomach churn. The ship begins to move, slowly at first, a gentle, almost imperceptible sway, then a more pronounced rocking. You hear the deep thrum of many oars dipping into the water, a rhythmic, powerful beat. The distance between you and the burning shore grows quickly. Your home, your entire world, shrinks into a distant glow, then disappears completely into the vast, inky blackness of the night. The rhythmic creak and groan beneath you are not the sounds of your old timber bed, but something larger, more ominous, and the smell, the overpowering stench of brine, unwashed bodies, and something metallic, like old blood, assaults your nostrils. Slowly, hesitantly, you open your eyes. Above you, a canvas of unfamiliar stars, brighter and colder than any you've ever seen, stretches across the vast inky sky. Around you, the shapes are indistinct, hulking shadows that sway with a subtle, ceaseless motion. You try to push yourself up, but a sharp, burning pain in your shoulder makes you gasp. Your hands, when you try to brace them, are rough, chafed, and the skin beneath your nails is caked with grime. A metallic taste coats your tongue, and you realize your lips are cracked and dry. The memory, a jumbled nightmare, begins to surface. The sudden guttural shouts that ripped through the quiet of your village, the frantic scramble, the screams of your neighbors, the terror that seized your heart, and then the dizzying sensation of being tossed unceremoniously into this dark, confined space. You are a captive, a prisoner, on a Viking ship. The realization settles over you like a shroud of ice. Fear, cold and sharp, clutches at your stomach. You are no warrior, no raider. You are simply a villager, a farmer, a baker, a weaver. It hardly matters now. Your life, until a few hours ago, was one of simple routines, of tilling the earth, of the warmth of a hearth fire, of the familiar faces of your kin. All of it is gone, swept away in a tide of violence and brutal efficiency. A subtle shift in the air, a faint lightening on the horizon, signals the approach of dawn. The stars begin to fade, one by one, giving way to a pale, milky gray. As the light strengthens, the shapes around you resolve into terrifying clarity. You are indeed on a ship, a long, narrow vessel. Their faces are bruised, streaked with dirt and tears. Some groan softly, nursing unseen wounds. You see a young woman, no older than yourself, her eyes wide with a silent, profound horror, clutching a small, crudely carved wooden doll. A grizzled old man, his face a road map of hard living, stares blankly at the rising sun, his lips moving in a soundless prayer. The floor beneath you is not flat, but curved, following the hull of the ship. It is hardwood, rough and splintered in places. and the constant, subtle rocking motion is already beginning to churn your empty stomach. You become aware of the ropes, thick and tarred, running along the sides of the ship, leading up to the mast, and then the figures emerge from the shadows. They are Vikings, tall, broad-shouldered men, their faces weathered by sun and sea. Their beards are braided, their hair long and often adorned with rings or beads. They wear tunics of coarse wool, sometimes stained with what you pray is just dirt, and their leather bracers are studded with metal. The weapons at their belts, axes, swords, and long knives, glint menacingly in the nascent light. One of them, a man with a scarred cheek and eyes like chips of flint, strides along the line of prisoners. He carries a heavy knotted rope in his hand, and he uses it to prod a man near you, who is slumped against the ship's side. The prod is not violent, but firm, an unmistakable command to sit upright. The man flinches, groans, but obeys. The Viking's gaze sweeps over you, lingering for a moment, making your skin crawl. You try to shrink smaller, to become invisible against the rough wood. The ship itself is a stark, functional thing. There are no comforts, no embellishments, just the long, open deck, a few wooden chests, lashed securely, and the great mast dominating the center. The smell of the sea grows stronger as the sun climbs higher. You become aware of the low murmur of voices from the other end of the ship, where the Vikings seem to be gathering. Their language is harsh, guttural, a series of clipped sounds that you cannot understand. But the tone is clear enough. They are giving orders, making preparations for the day. Your throat feels like sandpaper. The thirst is a gnawing ache, competing with the hunger that has begun to twist your gut. You haven't eaten since the previous midday, before the nightmare began. The thought of food, any food, fills your mind, but you know better than to ask. To draw attention to yourself would be a mistake. The gentle rocking of the ship intensifies slightly, a subtle change that indicates they are picking up speed. The sounds of the sea become more pronounced, the slap of water against the hull, the whisper of the wind through the rigging. You glance over the side, a quick, furtive look. The water is a dark, churning mass, endless and terrifying. Your village, your home. His words are unintelligible, but his gesture is clear. You are to move. Scrambling to your feet, every muscle protesting, you join the small group. Your legs are shaky, unused to the constant sway. You are led to a section of the ship where crude wooden benches are set. These are not for sitting, you realize, with a jolt of dread, but for rowing. Heavy, rough-hewn oars lie along the thwarts, thicker than your arm. The Vikings indicate, with another series of sharp commands and prods, that you are to take your place. The oar is incredibly heavy, its rough wood biting into your palms as you try to grasp it. It feels impossibly long, extending far out over the side of the ship. Another Viking, this one even larger than the first, with a brutish, impassive face, stands before you. He holds a whip, a long, thin strip of leather. His eyes are cold, assessing. You watch as he demonstrates the motion. A powerful pull, leaning back, then a controlled, never this brutal, repetitive strain. The command is given, a single, sharp word that rings out over the sounds of the sea. The oars splash into the water, and the ship lurches forward with renewed momentum. You pull, awkwardly at first, your arms screaming in protest. The oar feels impossibly heavy, dragging against the resistance of the water. Your back aches, your shoulders burn. The Viking with the whip paces behind you, his presence a constant, chilling reminder of the consequences of faltering. You hear the sharp crack of the whip as it descends on someone further down the line. Followed by a choked cry, it spurs you on. A fresh surge of adrenaline battling the growing fatigue. You grit your teeth, focusing on the simple, rhythmic motion. Pull, push, pull, push. The sun climbs higher, a cold, indifferent eye in the sky. Hours pass, marked only by the shifting light and the deepening ache in your muscles. Your hands are raw, blistered already. Your world has shrunk to the oar, the water, and the relentless, unforgiving rhythm. Your mind drifts, desperate for any escape from the brutal reality. You think of your small, warm cottage, the smell of wood smoke clinging to the thatch. You picture your mother's kind face, her hands busy at the loom. Your father, his quiet strength as he guided the plow. The taste of freshly baked bread, warm and soft in your mouth. Each memory is a tiny, exquisite torture, a stark contrast to the grim reality of your present. The hunger intensifies, a hollow, burning sensation. Your stomach growls, a shameful sound that you try to suppress. The thirst is almost unbearable now. Your mouth a dry, parched desert. You crave water, cool, sweet water. More than anything, suddenly, the rhythm of the rowing breaks. A different command rings out, and the Vikings begin to shift, pulling the oars in. A collective sigh of exhausted relief escapes the prisoners. Your arm, the rough wood, has left splinters in your palms. You close your eyes, trying to block out the oppressive reality. But there is no real rest. Another command, sharper this time, and you are being prodded again. This time, it's towards a different part of the deck. You see large wooden barrels, lashed down securely. The smell of sour ale, thick and yeasty, reaches you. And then, a more appealing scent, something vaguely meaty, though faint. The Vikings are distributing a meager meal. A small, hard piece of dried meat, tough and salty, is pressed into your hand. And then, a gulp of something that is not water, but a thin, watery ale, handed out in a communal horn. It's barely enough to wet your parched throat, but it's something. You chew the meat slowly, savoring every tough, stringy bite. It has almost no flavor, but the act of chewing, of putting something in your empty stomach, is a small mercy. The ale, though warm and somewhat bitter, brings a momentary. They seem utterly oblivious to the suffering of their captives, their faces impassive, their eyes cold. They are powerful, self-assured men, and in your current state, they seem almost superhuman. One of them, a younger man with a shock of sandy hair and a sparse beard, catches your eye. His gaze is not malicious, simply indifferent. He looks at you as he might look at a sack of grain or a piece of cargo. It's a look that reinforces your utter lack of agency, your complete insignificance. You are property, nothing more. The brief respite ends as quickly as it began. The barrels are resecured, the horns collected. The sun is now high in the sky, directly overhead, casting harsh, unforgiving light on the deck. The wind has picked up, and the ship begins to pitch and roll with a greater intensity. The waves outside are no longer gentle swells, but become larger, more insistent. Another round of commands, and you are back at the oars. You can feel the blisters on your hands tearing open, a sticky warmth spreading across your palms. The rhythm starts again, slow and relentless. Pull, push. The ship groans. The timbers creak under the strain. The wind howls, a mournful sound that seems to echo your own silent despair. The salt spray flies higher now, stinging your eyes, coating your lips with a bitter crust. You watch the other prisoners. Some have a haunted, vacant look in their eyes, as if their spirits have already departed. Others, like the old man, still row with a determined, if weary, resolve. The young woman with the doll rows with a desperate energy, her face pale and drawn. You wonder what horrors she witnessed, what family she lost. You wonder about your own. The thought of your family is a fresh wave of agony. Are they safe? Did they escape? Or are they, too, somewhere on this ship, or on another? The uncertainty is a cruel torment. You try to push the thoughts away, to focus only on the oar, on the burning in your muscles, on the simple act of survival. Hours bleed into one another. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky with bruised purples and oranges. The light softens, but the cold intensifies. The wind seems to bite deeper. You are shivering uncontrollably now, your teeth chattering, your simple tunic. All you have left offers little protection against the raw elements. The Vikings, too, are showing signs of the long day, but their strength seems inexhaustible. They shout to each other, their voices carrying over the roar of the wind. They seem to thrive in this brutal environment, born of it, shaped by it. Finally, mercifully, the command to cease rowing is given again. This time, the relief is profound, a dizzying wave that nearly sends you to your knees. You drop the oar with a clatter, your hands shaking violently. Every muscle in your body, some of them gather around a small, contained fire pit near the center of the ship, the only source of warmth. The smell of wood smoke, so comforting in your old life, is now just another foreign scent in this desolate world. You are herded back to the stern, where you were before. The rough wooden floor is just as hard, just as unyielding. You collapse onto it, trying to find a position that causes the least amount of pain. The other prisoners huddle together, a silent, miserable mass. The shared suffering creates a strange, unspoken bond. The Vikings gather around their fire, their forms silhouetted against the flickering flames. You watch them, trying to glean some understanding from their actions. They are cooking something, and the aroma, though faint, makes your stomach rumble fiercely. It smells like roasted meat, rich and savory. You get no such luxury. Another small, hard piece of dried meat is tossed to you, along with another sip of the thin ale. As darkness truly descends, the world outside the ship disappears into a vast, inky blackness. Only the distant stars and the occasional phosphorescent glow of the waves hint at the endless expanse of the sea. The wind howls louder now, a constant, mournful lament that seems to echo the cries of your own heart. You try to find some warmth, some comfort. You pull your knees up to your chest, wrapping your arms around yourself. The rough wool of your tunic scratches your skin, but you hardly notice. The cold permeates everything, a deep, pervasive chill that seems to reach into your very soul. The other prisoners around you are silent. Some are already asleep, their breathing ragged and shallow. Others stare blankly into the darkness, their eyes wide and unseeing. You wonder what thoughts haunt their minds. Do they, too, remember the warmth of their homes, the faces of their loved ones? Sleep seems impossible. Your body aches from the relentless labor. You hear the occasional shift of a Viking guard, their heavy footsteps on the deck, the clink of metal against leather, the low murmur of their voices, still unintelligible, but a constant reminder of your precarious situation. The ship continues its relentless journey, cutting through the dark waves. You are completely at their mercy, a tiny speck on a vast and unforgiving ocean. The thought is both terrifying and oddly comforting. There is nothing you can do, no escape, no hope, perhaps, only the relentless passage of time. You close your eyes, trying to conjure the image of your hearth fire, the crackle of burning logs, the comforting warmth on your face. You try to imagine the soft bleating of your sheep, the familiar scent of the fields. But the smells of the ship, the brine, the sweat, the subtle tang of blood, overwhelm your senses. The cold seeps deeper. You shiver violently, your teeth chattering. You can feel the dampness clinging to your clothes. You are drifting, half aware, half asleep. The sounds of the ship, the creak and groan of the timbers, the slap of the waves, become a lullaby of dread. The rhythmic rise and fall of the hull is no longer jarring, but a slow, hypnotizing sway. The thought of tomorrow brings another wave of despair, another day of brutal labor, of cold, of hunger, another day of being a prisoner. But for now, the overwhelming exhaustion begins to claim you. Your eyelids feel impossibly heavy. You curl tighter into yourself, seeking any scrap of warmth. The voices of the Vikings fade into a distant hum. The chill is still there, ever present, but your body, pushed beyond its limits, begins to succumb. The ship sails on through the dark, its purpose grim, its destination unknown. And you, a prisoner, adrift in a world turned upside down, finally, blessedly, slip into a fitful, shallow sleep, haunted by the phantom echoes of the sudden jolt that wrenches you from your shallow sleep is accompanied by a piercing guttural shout. Your eyes snap open, disoriented, and you are immediately aware of the biting cold, sharper and more intrusive than the night before. The world around you is still steeped in an inky darkness, but a new, unsettling energy crackles through the ship. The Vikings are stirring, their movements brisk, purposeful, and far too loud in the pre-dawn quiet. The air smells different now, sharper, with an acrid tang that makes your nose wrinkle and your stomach clench. You can hear a distinct thudding sound, rhythmic and heavy, coming from somewhere forward on the ship, a dull, resonant impact that vibrates through the very timbers beneath you. What is it? Your mind, still sluggish with sleep and profound exhaustion, struggles to make sense of the commotion. The constant rocking has become a part of you, a dizzying lullaby that now feels sinister. A Viking strides past. He carries a large wooden bucket, sloshing with water, and the sound of it splashing onto the deck is shockingly loud. A cold, wet slap against the rough wood. Then you realize what the thudding is, what the cold water is for. They are washing the deck. A strange, almost perverse task in the dead of night, you think, until a more chilling thought dawns on you. A sickening certainty, the metallic tang, sharp and coppery, that has been lingering in the air suddenly makes horrifying sense. The deck isn't just damp from the ocean spray, it's being scrubbed clean. Cleaned of what? You dare not vocalize the question, but the answer, cold and visceral, forms unbidden in your mind. You are prodded with a rough boot, not violently, but with an unmistakable force that demands immediate action. Up, get up, a voice, harsh and accented, barks at you in a language you still barely understand, but the meaning is clear, undeniable. You scramble to your feet, every muscle, your hands are stiff, the blisters tight and painful, some having already burst and scabbed over, only to be torn open anew by the previous day's brutal labor. The rough fabric of your tunic scratches against the broken skin of your shoulders, a minor discomfort amidst the greater agony. Other prisoners are being roused as well, their groans echoing in the cold air, thin and pathetic sounds of misery. You notice the young woman with the doll, her face still pale and drawn, but her eyes now hold a flicker of desperate energy, a fragile, defiant refusal to yield to the crushing despair. The old man, too, is slowly rising, his movements stiff and deliberate, a painful wince twisting his lips with every movement. His breath rasps, thin and dry, a sound like autumn leaves scraping on stone. You hear others coughing around you, shallow hacking sounds that suggest the cold and damp are beginning to take their inevitable toll. The light begins to creep over. It is indeed being scrubbed, water sloshing over the rough timbers, pushed along by thick bristled brooms, wielded by a few of the Vikings. You also notice, with a fresh wave of revulsion, the patches of darker stain that stubbornly refuse to wash away, clinging to the grain of the wood, absorbing into the very fibers. These are not just dirt stains. They are dark, almost black, and they tell a story that your mind immediately recoils from. The deck is not just being cleaned, it's being purified of its grim burden, its recent history. The day begins as the last ended, with the relentless rhythm of the sea and the unyielding demands of your captors. There is no morning meal, no moment of respite, not even a sip of the thin ale you had yesterday. Your stomach, already empty, growls in protest. You are immediately put to work, some of you back at the oars, the heavy, tarred wood cold and abrasive against your raw hands. Others are tasked with coiling ropes, their thick fibers biting into sensitive skin, mending tears in the single massive sail that is still furled, or, as in your case, bailing out the bilge water that sloshes in the bottom of the ship. You are assigned to the bilge again. The task is repulsive, far worse in the waking light than it had seemed in the partial darkness of yesterday. The water is cold and foul-smelling, thick with grime, bits of debris and something else, something cloying and sickly sweet that makes your stomach lurch and bile rise in your throat. The sickly sweet smell, you realize, with a fresh wave of nausea so potent it makes your eyes water, is indeed blood, diluted and putrid, mingled with stale vomit, human waste and the stagnant breath of a confined space. You are given a crude wooden bucket, chipped and splintered, its rim rough against your already injured hands, and told, with a harsh gesture and a clipped word you are beginning to associate with your back protests with every motion, a dull, unyielding ache that sits between your shoulder blades and radiates down to your lower spine. The water splashes onto your thin tunic, soaking it through instantly, and the cold seeps into your skin, chilling you to the bone, making your muscles clench involuntarily. The stench clings to you, a persistent nauseating miasma that you cannot escape, that seems to permeate your very pores. Each bucket, brimming with the vile liquid, feels heavier than the last, your arms burning with the effort, trembling with the strain. You find yourself fighting shallow breaths, trying to avoid inhaling the foul air, but it's impossible. The sun, a weak, pale disk, begins its slow ascent, apathetic and distant. The air is still bitterly cold, a constant raw edge against your skin. And the wind, though less violent than yesterday, carries a damp chill that seems to cut through your every layer of clothing, chilling your very marrow. The ever-present threat of the whip, or worse, hangs heavy in the air, a silent, unseen companion. You glance up sometimes, quickly, furtively, catching a glimpse of the burly Viking with the scarred face, or the one with the long, thin whip, their impassive gazes sweeping over the captives, ensuring no one falters, no one dares to rest. Their presence is a physical weight pressing down on you. You watch the Vikings move about the ship. They seem impervious to the cold, their movements fluid and strong, their bodies seeming to generate an internal heat that defies the elements. They are constantly busy, checking ropes, adjusting sails with powerful heaves, speaking in low, guttural tones that carry on the wind. They are efficient, methodical, and utterly without mercy for their captives. They seem to belong to the ship, an extension of its brutal purpose, a part of its unforgiving nature. Their wool and leather cloaks seem thick and impenetrable. He is clearly a leader, his commands sharp and unquestioned, resonating with an innate, brutal authority that everyone, even the other Vikings, seems to respect. His gaze, when it falls upon you during his slow scan of the deck, is cold and assessing, devoid of any warmth or recognition of your humanity. You are simply a tool, an extension of the ship's labor, a piece of equipment to be used until it breaks. His indifference is more chilling than any overt cruelty. Hours pass in this dreary, repetitive labor. The sun makes no progress in warming the day. Your hands, already raw, are now pruned and numb from the constant immersion in the cold, foul water. The skin on your palms feels stretched and tight, then begins to crack and bleed in the creases, leaving streaks of red in the gray bilge water. Your back aches with a dull, persistent throb that sits between your shoulder blades and radiates down to your lower spine, a constant, grinding pain. The hunger begins to gnaw at your stomach again, a hollow, desperate emptiness made worse by the nauseating smell of the bilge, which seems to seep into your very being. The thirst, too, returns with a vengeance, a burning sensation in your throat and mouth. Your lips are cracked and bleeding, the corners of your mouth sore and raw, stretching painfully with every attempt to speak or swallow. Your tongue feels thick and swollen in your mouth, clinging uncomfortably to the roof like a dry sponge. You crave water, pure, fresh water, cool and sweet, more than anything. The salt-laced wind and the bitter taste of fear are your only companions. Each time you swallow, your throat feels like sandpaper, a dry, rasping sound that echoes the parched landscape of your mouth. You dream of a simple stream, a cool well. Midday brings a brief, brutal respite. It is not a break, merely a pause in the relentless labor. You are given the same meager ration as yesterday, a small piece of dried meat. It has a metallic, slightly stale taste, a faint hint of something spoiled, but you devour it quickly, greedily, trying to savor every tough bite, every shred of sustenance. It offers little comfort, barely enough to quell the immediate pangs of hunger, leaving you wanting more, far more, a hollow echo in your stomach. The ale is warm, tasting faintly of stagnant wood, and does little to quench your thirst, only wetting your tongue for a fleeting moment before the dryness returns. As you consume your meager portion, you notice a distinct change in the air, a subtle shift in the ship's motion that sends a fresh ripple of unease through you. The waves seem larger now, their rhythm more pronounced, no longer just swells but building forces. The ship pitches and rolls more dramatically, its hull groaning and protesting with every sickening movement, the timbers creaking with a louder, more frantic voice. The wind howls with a new intensity, a rising, keening dark, bruised clouds are gathering on the horizon, moving swiftly towards you, their edges a deepening, ominous gray, heavy with unseen moisture. They are not merely clouds. They are a looming, growing threat, a storm. The word, inspoken, hangs heavy in the air among the prisoners, a silent shared dread. Fear, cold and insidious, begins to coil in your gut, a tighter, colder knot than before, making your muscles tense involuntarily. You have heard tales of the northern seas, of sudden, violent storms that can swallow ships whole, crushing them to splinters, leaving no trace. Your body, already weakened, aching, and suffering, feels utterly unprepared for such an ordeal, utterly vulnerable. The Vikings are reacting, their movements becoming more urgent, their voices sharper, more clipped, almost frantic. They shout commands, their words a harsh torrent, barely audible above the rising wind. They are scrambling, moving with incredible speed and efficiency. The great sail is being lowered, its massive expanse flapping violently in the gusts, a sound like thunder, a terrible crack that echoes the rising tension. You are suddenly gripped by a large hand on your arm. You hear. The voice is gruff, an abrupt command that allows no hesitation. You are pulled, stumbling, towards the center of the ship, where a knot of other prisoners is already being gathered. Their faces are etched with the same terror, their eyes wide and unseeing. You are being put to work, forced to help lash down the heavier equipment, pulling on thick, rough ropes, your hands already protesting. You struggle against the rising wind that threatens to tear you from your feet, forcing you to brace yourself against the rolling deck. The ship groans and creaks, its timbers straining under the increasing force of the waves. A deep, resonant moan that vibrates through the deck beneath your bare feet, up into your very bones. The sound is like the spray from the ocean washes over the deck, cold and stinging, no longer just a mist, but a drenching sheet of icy water that blinds you. You are soaked to the bone in moments, your thin tunic clinging miserably to your skin, leaching away every last trace of warmth. Your hair, plastered to your face, drips icy water onto your eyes and lips. The wind tears at your clothing, a relentless, clawing force threatening to rip it from your body, clawing at your exposed skin, raising fresh welts. The storm descends with terrifying speed and unbridled ferocity. The sky darkens, turning a malevolent shade of gray-green, then an almost impenetrable black, consuming what little light remained. Lightning flashes in the distance, tearing the darkness for a fleeting instant, illuminating the monstrous, towering waves for a brief, horrifying moment, followed by the deep, resounding rumble of thunder that shakes the very air. The waves swell, your stomach lurches with every sickening drop, and you fight the overwhelming urge to vomit, the bitter taste already rising in your throat. Burning. Rain begins to lash down, cold and relentless, mixing with the ocean spray. It blinds you, stings your eyes, making it impossible to see beyond a few feet, turning the world into a chaotic blur. The noise is deafening, a cacophony of elemental fury. The howl of the wind, a banshee's scream that tears at your ears, threatening to rip the hearing from your head. The crash of the waves against the hull, a ceaseless, thunderous roar that vibrates through your chest. The groaning of the ship's timbers, protesting their torment, each creak a shriek, and the shouts of the Vikings, barely audible above the chaos, their voices raw with effort. Desperate, you are thrown violently against the wooden rail, then against another prisoner, a soft, yielding impact as the ship pitches wildly, listing sharply from side. Your hands, already blistered and torn, feel as though they are tearing apart with the strain. The pain a distant, burning agony. The cold is unbearable, piercing to your very core, a profound aching chill that seems to reach into your very soul, numbing you from within. Your limbs feel like lead, heavy, unresponsive, barely obeying your will. Fear, raw and primal, consumes you. It is no longer a knot in your stomach, but a vast, suffocating presence that fills your entire being, crushing your chest, stealing your breath. You are certain this is the end. The ship cannot withstand such a beating, such a relentless assault. You imagine the icy depths of the ocean, the crushing pressure, the suffocating darkness, the bitter cold that would steal your breath, paralyze your limbs, claim you forever. A quiet resignation begins to settle over you, a strange sense of calm, born of absolute despair. Perhaps death would be a release from this. Their faces are grim, streaked with rain and spray, but their eyes burn with a strange, wild light, a fierce joy in the struggle. They shout encouragement to each other, their bodies bracing against the violent lurches of the ship, their movements precise even amidst the mayhem, almost graceful. They are masters of this unforgiving sea, born of its fury, shaped by its relentless demands, and they will not yield. They are pushing themselves, pushing the ship, defying the very elements with a primal force that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. One moment you are pulling on a rope, your muscles screaming, your body braced against a violent lurch, your feet slipping on the wet deck. The next, a massive wave crashes over the bow, a towering black wall of icy water that seems to rise from the depths to consume you. It sweeps across the deck with incredible force. You are submerged instantly, dragged along the rough timbers, your head hitting something hard. A sharp, stunning impact. You gasp, choking, a burning pain in your lungs, as icy water fills your mouth and nose, stealing your breath. You desperately claw for something, anything to hold on to, your fingers scrabbling blindly, frantically, your nails tearing on the splintered wood. Your fingers close around a loose rope, thick and chafing, and you cling to it with a strength you didn't know you possessed, a primal urge to survive, to simply not drown. You cough and splutter, gasping for air, your lungs burning, your body trembling uncontrollably, racked by deep, convulsive shivers that leave you weak. The sea tries to claim you, to pull you into its churning abyss, its cold, dark embrace. But you fight back, driven by an instinct beyond reason, beyond thought, beyond despair. Your grip tightens, your knuckles white, your teeth gritted, a silent vow to cling to life. The storm rages for what feels like an eternity. Time loses all meaning, dissolving into a continuous. Your voice is lost in the wind as you cry out, not in defiance, but in raw, unadulterated fear, a sound ripped from the deepest part of your soul, a sound you don't even recognize as your own. Every fiber of your being is focused on simply holding on simply breathing. Then, as suddenly as it began, the storm begins to abate. The rain lessens, then stops, leaving only a fine, cold mist that still clings to your clothes. The wind, though still strong, loses its furious, tearing edge, settling into a powerful, steady blow, a deep sigh of exhaustion. The waves, though still large, become less violent, their peaks no longer reaching for the sky, but settling into long, rolling swells that lift and lower the ship with a more predictable rhythm. A sliver of pale light, a faint promise, appears on the western horizon, a beacon of fragile hope in the bruised, angry sky, bleeding through the departing clouds. Exhaustion. You are drenched, shivering violently, your teeth chattering so hard you fear they will crack, a painful chatter that echoes in your skull. Every muscle aches with a deep, searing pain. Every bone protests with a dull, insistent throb. Your entire being screams for rest, for warmth, for an end to this torment. Your mind feels as bruised and battered as your body. The Vikings, though clearly weary, their faces grimed and tired, immediately begin to assess the damage. They inspect ropes, check for leaks, move about with their usual purpose, their movements less frantic but still efficient, their focus absolute. They seem largely unharmed, a testament to their resilience and their intimate knowledge of the sea, their faces grim but victorious, even triumphant. They have survived this, as they have survived countless others, and by some miracle, some twist of fate, so have you, a tiny fragile spark of something, not quite gratitude, but a cold acknowledgment. The moon, a thin crescent, appears in the clearing sky, a ghostly white against the last vestiges of color from the setting sun, casting a pale, ethereal light on the wet deck, making the puddles gleam. The air is still bitterly cold, biting at your exposed skin, but the immediate, soul-crushing threat of the storm has passed. The world feels strangely quiet after the roaring chaos, a silence that hums with lingering tension. The evening meal is even more meager than the last. A few dried berries, shriveled and tart, their sweetness barely perceptible, tasting like dust and faint memory, and another small, tough piece of the salty meat, so thin it feels like paper. The ale, if anything, tastes thinner than before, almost like brackish water, flat and stale, barely wetting your tongue. You eat it mechanically, your body craving sustenance, any sustenance, gnawing at the tough fibers of meat, crushing the dry berries against your gums. It is just enough to keep the spark of life flickering, a tiny, struggling flame in the vast darkness of your hunger. You finish it too quickly, leaving the familiar hollow ache. You are allowed to huddle with the other prisoners again, a silent, shivering mass of humanity, drawn together by the sheer force of shared misery. No fire is lit for the captives, only a small flickering flame near the Vikings, a warm beacon that casts long dancing shadows on the deck, emphasizing their comfort in stark contrast to your own misery. The smell of their roasted meat, richer and more appealing than before, drifts on the wind, a cruel tease that makes your stomach cramp and your saliva glands ache. You hear their low voices, the occasional rumble of laughter, the clink of metal as they clean their weapons. They are oblivious to your suffering. The cold is an omnipresent torment, an insidious enemy that seems to burrow deeper with every hour. Chilling, you can feel the heat radiating from their shivering bodies, a fragile comfort. The young woman with the doll is trembling uncontrollably, her eyes wide and staring at nothing, lost in her own private horrors, her face drawn and ghostly. The old man is coughing, a dry hacking sound that rattles in his chest, making his frail body convulse with each spasm, a sound that tears at the quiet. You feel a dull ache in your chest, a tightness that makes breathing a conscious effort, and a persistent, dry cough begins to rack your own body. It starts as a tickle, then a rasp, then a deep, tearing cough that leaves your throat raw and burning, making your eyes water. Your lungs feel heavy, a burning weight inside your ribs. The cold, the damp, the profound exhaustion, it is taking its toll, seeping into your very core. You try to suppress the cough, to stifle it, to hold it in, but it tears through you, uncontrollable, leaving your throat raw and aching, your chest tight with a dull, persistent pain. Your mind is too restless, too tormented by the day's events, by the haunting images of the storm, by the memory of your home. You lie on the hard deck, feeling every splinter, listening to the creak and groan of the ship, the slap of the waves against the hull, the distant murmur of the Vikings' voices. Every now and then, a shiver runs through your body, violent and uncontrollable, shaking you from head to foot, making your teeth chatter painfully. You wonder about your home. Is it still standing? Were others taken? Did anyone survive? The questions torment you, swirling in your mind like the eddies in the dark sea, each one a fresh stab of agony, a renewed sense of loss. You try to picture the faces of your family, to hold them in your mind, to conjure their warmth, their smiles, the sound of their voices, but the images are fading, growing fainter with each passing moment, blurred by the relentless present, by the overwhelming reality of your new The ship sails on, a silent, formidable shadow against the vast expanse of the ocean, its purpose clear, its destination unknown. You are just one more captive among many, a disposable commodity in the eyes of your captors, your existence reduced to labor and suffering. You feel utterly insignificant, a mere insect on this vast moving plank of wood. A strange thought occurs to you, a cold, unsettling realization that seeps into your consciousness, a resignation that brings a different kind of pain. You are no longer dreaming of escape. Not truly. The sheer vastness of the sea, the overwhelming power of these men, their utter disregard for your life, it has crushed that hope. It feels too grand, too impossible a dream to cling to, a luxury you can no longer afford. You are simply focused on survival, on enduring each brutal moment, each agonizing hour, each bitter breath. That is all that is left. You close. The ship continues its relentless journey, cutting through the dark waves, carrying you further and further from everything you once knew, from every comfort, every familiar face. You are adrift, utterly lost, a tiny speck on an endless sea, but still breathing. And for now, that is enough. The sound of the waves becomes a low hum, a constant, inescapable presence, a new, grim lullaby. You drift into a restless, shallow slumber, haunted by the cold, the hunger, and the endless, rolling sea, your body a weary, broken vessel, a testament to endurance. The third dawn breaks with an even greater sense of bleakness than the days before. Not a crisp, clear light, but a uniform, leaden gray that presses down from above. The sky hangs low, heavy and oppressive, mirroring the dull, persistent ache that has settled deep within your chest, a constant burning tightness behind your ribs. Your cough is worse, a persistent, rattling rasp that seems to tear at your throat, bringing involuntary tears to your eyes, blurring the already dim world. Every breath is a shallow, painful effort, as if your lungs are filled with thorns, pricking with each intake of air. The cold has truly permeated your bones now, a deep internal tremor, shaking your limbs, making simple movements feel like a monumental task, a battle against your own weakening body. You can feel the fever building, a faint, internal heat that battles the external chill, leaving you lightheaded, disoriented, and profoundly weak. Your skin feels the sheer noise of the ship, the relentless creak of timbers, a symphony of wood protesting against the sea, the constant slap of waves against the hull, and the gruff shouts of the Vikings, their voices now sounding more impatient, is enough to rouse you from your fitful, nightmare-ridden sleep. Your body feels like a sack of stones, heavy and unresponsive, each joint stiff and protesting with a sharp, insistent pain that radiates through your aching bones. You push yourself up slowly, painstakingly, every movement and effort that leaves you breathless, your head swimming with dizziness and a dull, throbbing headache. The omnipresent smell of the bilge, persistent and nauseating, seems to have permanently settled in your nostrils, clinging to your very breath. The bilge bailing resumes, a cruel continuation of yesterday's torment, or perhaps an extension of the same endless day. The water is still cold, still foul, its surface shimmering with an oily sheen, and your hands are... Each scoop of the heavy, sloshing liquid sends a fresh wave of searing pain through your arms, a burning agony that radiates up to your shoulders, making your teeth clench. You work mechanically, your movements slow and deliberate, your mind distant, blurred by fever and profound exhaustion, your body simply going through the motions, a puppet pulled by unseen strings, driven only by the sheer cold will to survive, the desire to simply stop, to give up, to let the icy water claim you, to sink into the dark depths and find oblivion, is a powerful lure, a sweet, insidious whisper in your ear. But the vivid image of the whip, the memory of sharp, tearing pain, and a profound primal fear of worse suffering keeps you going, keeps your aching muscles moving. You can feel the fever, making your skin alternately flush with a burning heat, and then shiver with intense, uncontrollable cold, your teeth chattering. The young woman with the doll is coughing too, a fragile, wheezing. The old man's cough is deeper, more resonant, a wet, rattling sound that seems to tear at his very core. making his frail body convulse with each spasm, leaving him gasping for air. His face is a ghostly pale, his eyes sunken and vacant, lost in suffering. Illness is clearly spreading among the prisoners, a silent, insidious threat, a grim tally that adds to the already unbearable conditions. You hear others groaning, some writhing in restless sleep, their breathing shallow and labored, some barely audible. The air feels heavy with the inspoken fear of contagion, a new dread layered upon the existing terrors. The hunger is a constant gnawing presence, a hollow void in your stomach that aches and cramps. But now it is accompanied by a new sensation, overwhelming, constant nausea. The smell of the ship, the incessant rocking motion that never ceases, the putrid bilge water, the metallic tang in the air that never dissipates, it all, you fight it down, clenching your jaw, so hard your temples throb, pressing your fist against your stomach, knowing that to vomit would only draw unwanted attention, expose your weakness, and waste the precious few calories you manage to consume. The effort to suppress it makes your head pound with renewed intensity. The weather remains cold and overcast, relentlessly gray, a perpetual twilight. The sun, when it makes a brief fleeting appearance, pushing through a rent in the clouds, is a weak, watery disk, offering no warmth, no comfort, only a harsh, pale light that illuminates the grim conditions. The wind, though not violently strong, is ceaseless, biting, and seems to carry the dampness of the ocean into your very lungs, feeding your cough, aggravating every ache. It penetrates every thin layer of your clothing, chilling you to the very bone, making your skin feel like parchment. You can feel the skin on your face growing rough. They seem to eat more often than the prisoners, and their food smells richer, heartier, a tortuous aroma that drifts across the deck, teasing your starving senses. You catch tantalizing glimpses of smoked fish, its oils glistening, hard cheese, creamy and fragrant, and thick loaves of dark, dense bread, their crusts golden, sometimes even dried fruit or a piece of cured meat, its fat marbled and glistening. The contrast to your own meager rations, the unceasing hunger, is a cruel, constant reminder of your plight, their abundance mocking your starvation, their robust health a stark contrast to your fading strength. One of the Vikings, a burly man with a red beard braided with silver rings, and an ever-present scowl etched onto his face, paces near the prisoners. He carries a long, stout club, its surface smooth and dark from years of use, and occasionally he uses it to prod a lagging captive, a sharp, blunt impact that elicits a muffled gasp, or his eyes are cold, devoid of expression, seeming to look straight through you, seeing only a body to be exploited. You are tasked with cleaning the deck after a Viking meal, sweeping away crumbs and scraps of their feast. Your eyes linger on a discarded piece of fish skin, still glistening with fat, or a tiny fragment of hard-crusted bread, its scent lingering faintly. Your stomach growls fiercely, a loud, shameful sound that you try desperately to suppress with a clench of your muscles. Your mouth waters, a desperate physiological response to the forbidden food. You consider reaching for it, a fleeting, rebellious thought, your fingers twitching with a desperate urge. But the vivid image of the Viking's club, his cold, unblinking eyes, stops you, freezing you in place. To steal even a single insignificant scrap would invite swift and brutal punishment, a pain far greater than your current hunger. The risk is simply too high, the cost unimaginable. The days are endless, a monotonous cycle of cold, hunger, labor, and sleep, broken only by fleeting moments of terror. There is no conversation, no laughter, no comfort among the prisoners, only the shared, silent suffering, the occasional ragged breath or soft groan, only the constant creak of the ship, the groan of the timbers, a mournful sound, and the rhythmic splash of the waves against the hull, a ceaseless, hypnotic beat. Your thoughts, when they manage to form, turn inward, becoming a bleak landscape of regret and fading memories, a mental prison as confining as your physical one. Your mind drifts back to your home, to the warmth of the hearth, the comforting crackle of the fire, the chatter of familiar voices, the simple comfort of a shared meal around a worn wooden table, the familiar scent of your mother's stew. You remember the taste of fresh bread, hot from the oven, its crust golden and soft, the sweetness of berry, the feel of soft, clean linen against your skin, the comforting scent of lavender from your mother's chest, the familiar weight of your own bed. The memories are so vivid, so real, they bring a fresh pang of despair, a sharp, aching longing for what is lost, for a life irrevocably taken. You try to hold on to them, to preserve them against the relentless present, to keep them from fading, to cling to every detail. But the harsh reality of the ship constantly intrudes, like relentless waves, eroding a shoreline, washing away the precious images. The salt spray, the stench, the cold, they are replacing everything. Late in the afternoon, as the light begins to subtly shift, the routine changes, a subtle alteration that jolts you from your numb stupor. The Vikings begin to gather at the bow of the ship, their voices louder, more excited, a ripple of animation passing through their ranks. You hear words like land and shore repeated, a flicker of something, not quite hope, but a different kind of dread, a chilling anticipation of the unknown, runs through the prisoners, a collective intake of breath. What new hell awaits on solid ground? Will it be worse? Land. What does that mean for you? Will you be sold, traded like cattle in a market? Will you be killed, offered as a sacrifice to their grim unknown gods, their faces impassive in the flickering torchlight? The unknown is terrifying, a vast dark abyss stretching before you, more frightening in its uncertainty than the known torment of the ship. You peer into the murky distance, squinting, your eyes tired and burning, trying to discern what has captured their attention, what destiny awaits you. Your heart thumps with a new, frantic rhythm. Slowly, gradually, a faint, dark smudge appears on the horizon, barely discernible at first against the heavy gray sky, then growing larger, resolving itself into the indistinct shape. It is a stark, wild landscape, nothing like the gentle, rolling hills and cultivated fields of your homeland. Its familiar green replaced by harsh, unyielding rock, bleak moors, and dark, imposing forests that stretch to the horizon, silent and forbidding. It seems a grim, unforgiving place, promising only more hardship. The Vikings are buzzing with anticipation now. Their movements are quicker, sharper, almost predatory, their voices more animated, a low, excited hum that vibrates through the ship, a deep murmur of eager anticipation. They begin to prepare for disembarkation. Weapons are checked, their edges glinting cold and sharp in the dimming light, cloaks adjusted, belts tightened, pouches secured. There is a sense of grim purpose in their actions, a ruthless efficiency, a predatory energy that makes your skin crawl, that tells you this land is not for peace. The ship slows its pace. The powerful thrum of the oars the sound of the waves becomes softer, less powerful, a gentle lapping rather than a crashing roar, as you enter what seems to be a sheltered bay, protected by high cliffs that rise like dark sentinels. The air, though still bitterly cold, carries a new scent, that of pine needles, damp earth, and something vaguely metallic, like unworked iron or exposed rock. It's a smell of solid ground, but an alien ground, a wild, untamed place. As the ship draws closer, you can make out details on the shore. A small, crude village nestled amongst the dark trees, a cluster of a dozen huts made of rough timber and turf, huddled together for warmth against the relentless wind. Smoke curls lazily from the vents in their roofs, thin plumes against the gray sky, and the distant bleating of goats can be heard. A surprisingly domestic and comforting sound amidst the raw wildness. A few figures, small and indistinct, move about, tiny specks against the vastness of the land. Their movements, are you about to witness the same horror that befell your own village, but from the perspective of the aggressors, watching innocents fall? The Vikings ready themselves. Axes are gripped, their heavy heads gleaming, shields adjusted on their arms. Their faces grim, determined, a picture of ruthless efficiency. The leader, the man with the gold arm ring, his face like carved stone, gives a series of sharp commands, his voice carrying clearly now in the calmer air, cutting through the silence. His gaze sweeps over his men, then over the prisoners, a cold, calculating look that seems to weigh your worth, your potential use, your value as property. Then, to your surprise, a small boat puts out from the shore, rowing steadily towards your ship. It carries a few figures, their clothing different from the Vikings, simpler, made of coarser, undyed wool, but equally rough and practical. They are clearly not preparing for battle. There are no weapons visible, no menacing postures, only a sense of caution. A different kind of tension fills the air. It's not the raw, animalistic fear of a raid, but something colder. The boat draws alongside, bumping gently against the hull of the longship with a soft thud. One of the figures, a man with a weathered face, deeply lined by sun and wind, and a long gray beard, speaks in a guttural language, exchanging words with the Viking leader. The conversation is long, punctuated by gestures and occasional nods, by the counting of fingers and the pointing at specific prisoners, a transaction unfolding before your eyes. You strain to understand, to grasp any hint of your fate, but the words remain a foreign jumble, meaningless sounds that decide your future. You watch, a knot of dread tightening in your stomach, growing colder with every passing moment, every gesture. What are they discussing? Your fate, the fate of the other prisoners. You try to discern expressions, to find a hint of mercy or cruelty, a clue to your future, but their faces are impassive, unreadable. Like carved wood, reveal. His eyes linger on you, then on the young woman with the doll, her face pale and drawn, then on the old man, his cough now a constant hacking sound, that shakes his frail frame, a cold, assessing look that makes your blood run colder than the sea, a feeling of being weighed and measured, like livestock before a sale. Then, a new set of commands, delivered with a sharp, decisive gesture. You, and you, and you. The burly Viking with the club points directly at you, then at the young woman, and then at the old man. His finger and unyielding command. Your heart pounds in your chest, a frantic drum against your ribs, a desperate beat. This is it. This is your moment of truth. You have been selected. You are led to the side of the ship, where a gangplank, a single rough plank of wood, barely wide enough for one person, is being lowered onto the small boat below. Your legs tremble violently as you step onto the narrow plank, your body weak with hunger, cold, and the small boat rocks violently beneath your feet, a dizzying motion. And for a terrifying moment, you think you might lose your balance, tumbling into the icy, churning water between the vessels. You grip the rough rope railing, your raw hands burning, your knuckles white. You are not alone. Several other prisoners are chosen as well, a small group of the most robust, or perhaps the least desirable, those whose suffering made them less appealing for further journeys. You are all pushed roughly into the small boat, which immediately feels crowded and unstable, its low sides barely above the water, threatening to swamp with every slight shift. The smell of fish, strong and unpleasant, rises from the bottom of the boat, mingled with the faint scent of stale beer and damp wood. The man with the gray beard from the shore boat takes up the oars. He rows with powerful, practiced strokes, pulling away from the Viking ship. The longship, its grim purpose fulfilled for now, begins. You glance back, watching as the longship grows smaller in the distance, a dark, ominous silhouette against the bleak sky, its fearsome dragon figurehead seeming to sneer its victory. A strange mixture of relief and renewed despair washes over you. You are off the ship, away from that floating prison, that endless torment. But where are you going? What new form of captivity awaits? The vastness of the ocean stretching behind you feels strangely comforting now. A known torment replaced by an unknown one. The short journey to shore feels endless, each stroke of the oars a slow, deliberate movement towards an uncertain future. The cold spray from the oars whips into your face, stinging your eyes, making them water. The other prisoners in the boat are silent, their faces mirroring your own fear and uncertainty, a shared mask of dread. The young woman clutches her doll, tighter, her knuckles white, her eyes wide with a quiet desperation. A silent scream as the boat grinds onto the rocky shore with a harsh scrape, a jarring sound that vibrates up your spine. You are immediately seized by the men from the village. They are not as heavily armed as the Vikings, their clothing simpler, but their grip is firm, their movements purposeful, their faces grim and unsmiling. You are pulled, stumbling, onto the uneven ground, your bare feet finding purchase on rough stones and damp earth, each step a small pain. The scent of pine and damp earth is stronger here, richer, mingled with the faint, persistent smell of wood smoke, a smell that hints at settled life, at human habitation, but not necessarily a gentle one. The village is small, no more than a dozen huts made of rough timber and turf, huddled together for warmth against the elements, their forms squat and sturdy. Smoke curls lazily from the vents in their roofs, Thin tendrils against the gray sky, and the distant bleating of goats can be heard, a surprisingly domestic and comforting sound. Few children, their faces solemn and wary, watch you from the doorways of the huts, their expressions unreadable, a mixture of curiosity and caution, their small bodies silent and still. You feel their gaze on you, assessing. You are led to one of the larger huts, pushed inside with the others. The interior is dim, lit only by the flickering light of a small central fire pit, its flames dancing, casting long, shifting shadows on the rough, unchinked walls. The air is thick with smoke, stinging your eyes and making your cough worse, but it is also blessedly warm, a profound relief after the biting cold of the sea and the open deck. Your body, so long frozen, aches as it slowly begins to warm, a painful resurgence of feeling throughout your thawing muscles. The hut is simple, a dirt floor, packed hard and uneven, rough wooden walls, and a low thatched roof that sheds faint bits of straw onto the floor. There are a few crude benches, a small loom. The smell of stale bread and cooking meat, thick and earthy, is comforting, almost overwhelming in its richness after days of deprivation, a scent that promises sustenance, real sustenance. The men who brought you here are speaking amongst themselves in their guttural language, their voices low and resonant. You understand nothing, but their tone seems less hostile than the Vikings', more practical, almost detached. Like farmers discussing livestock, they are discussing your worth, you realize, your capabilities, your potential for labor. You are no longer on the ship, but you are still a prisoner, still a commodity, merely transferred from one owner to another. The immediate fear of death has receded, replaced by the crushing weight of uncertainty, the grim reality of perpetual servitude. You are pointed to a corner of the hut, a space near the fire, relatively dry and out of the way. You collapse onto the dirt floor. The warmth, though welcome, brings with it a fresh wave of aching and discomfort as your frozen muscles begin to thaw, a painful resurgence of feeling throughout your body. Your head throbs persistently, a dull drumbeat in your skull, and the fever still makes you feel distant, detached, observing yourself from afar. A woman enters the hut, her face lined and weathered, deeply tanned by sun and wind, her hands roughened by toil, but her eyes, though assessing, are surprisingly kind, a flicker of something human and compassionate that you haven't seen in days. She carries a wooden bowl, worn smooth by countless uses, cradled in her arms. She speaks softly, her words gentle, though you don't understand them. She offers you a small piece of dark, dense bread, coarse but still fresh, and a bowl of thin, hot broth, steaming gently, its aroma rising like a blessing. It is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. The broth, though simple, made of water and a few herbs. The bread, though coarse and heavy, is soft and filling, easily chewed, absorbing the broth. You eat slowly, painstakingly, savoring every mouthful, every crumb, trying to make it last, to draw out the precious moment of relief, the sensation of satiety. The warmth spreads through you, fighting back the chill that has lived in your bones for days. As you eat, you watch the other prisoners. The young woman eats with the same desperate hunger, her eyes darting nervously around the hut, as if expecting the food to be snatched away. The old man, too, partakes of the food, though his cough still racks him, making him pause between sips, his hand trembling as he lifts the bowl. A glimmer of something, a tiny, fragile spark of hope, begins to flicker within you, a warmth in the pit of your stomach that isn't just from the broth. You are alive. You have food. You are no longer on that terrifying ship, at the mercy of the endless ocean. But the future remains. Her face is impassive as she watches you eat, her gaze thoughtful, not unkind, but not overtly sympathetic either. She sees a captive, a new mouth to feed, a new pair of hands for labor, a valuable addition to her household. The day slowly gives way to night, the natural light fading in the hut, replaced by the flickering glow of the fire. The fire in the hut crackles and spits, sending small embers dancing upwards towards the smoke hole, its warmth, a constant, tangible comfort. The air is still smoky, a constant presence that stings your eyes, but it is also blessedly warm. And the simple act of being out of the relentless wind and cold is a profound comfort, a deep, bone-deep relief. You are not given furs or blankets for your own. But the dirt floor, packed hard, but warmed by the fire, is softer than the deck of the ship, and less punishing. You huddle with the other prisoners, drawing what little warmth you can from each other. Feel the sounds of their distant conversation, their occasional laughter, the barking of their dogs, the lowing of their cattle, are a strange, foreign lullaby, a sound of ordinary life that is no longer your own. You are an outsider here, a captive, but for now you are safe from the immediate brutality of the sea, from the unpredictable violence of the raiders. Sleep comes more easily tonight, though it is still restless. The ache in your chest persists, a dull throb, and your cough occasionally wakes you, a harsh, dry sound in the quiet hut, reminding you of the journey. But the vivid image of the storm-tossed ship, the endless churning waves, the cold indifference of the Vikings begins to recede, fading into the background of your consciousness, replaced by the more immediate, if still harsh, reality of your new surroundings. The sounds of the ship are less frequent in your dreams now, replaced by the mundane sounds of the village. You are in a new and as the fire crackles, its warmth slowly seeping into your weary bones, a tiny fragile seed of something, perhaps hope, perhaps simply the instinct to survive, begins to take root in the desolate landscape of your heart. You drift into sleep, lulled by the crackling fire and the distant murmur of an unfamiliar village, the sounds of your new, unwanted home. The morning in the hut arrives, with the soft glow of dawn filtering through the smoke hole in the roof, a faint, milky light that barely cuts through the lingering deep shadows that cling to the rough-hewn walls. The air is still thick with the pervasive smell of wood smoke, a constant presence that clings to your clothes and hair, permeates your very skin, but it's warm, blessedly warm, a profound comfort after the biting cold of the sea. The deep, persistent chill that had permeated your bones on the ship has finally begun to recede, replaced by a lingering soreness, a dull background ache that has become a familiar companion. A part of your daily existence, your cough is still present, a faint rasping reminder of the brutal journey, a dry tickle in your throat that occasionally compels a shallow clearing, but it feels less urgent, less demanding than before. Slowly fading like a bad memory, becoming almost an echo. Every breath feels the rhythmic sounds of life in the hut, a soft, almost domestic symphony, awaken you more gently than the violent shocks of the ship. And then, the comforting smell of cooking porridge, thick and earthy, rich with the promise of sustenance, stirring your empty stomach with a profound anticipation that aches in your gut. The woman who brought you food yesterday is already stirring a large, black iron pot over the central fire, her movements slow, deliberate, practiced, steam rising in wisps around her, catching the dim light. Her face, still lined and weathered by sun and toil, seems less formidable in the soft flickering light, almost a part of the hearth itself. Soon, a wooden bowl, worn smooth by countless hands, filled with thick, warm porridge, is placed before you. It's bland, perhaps unseasoned save for the faint, nutty taste of the grain, but it is nourishing, a dense, comforting weight that promises energy and resilience. You eat it slowly. It's a stark contrast to the hard, dry meat and brackish ale of the ship, a profound mercy that feels monumental in its simplicity, a luxury you once took for granted. You feel the slow, steady return of strength, a subtle thrum of energy with each mouthful, each grain consumed. After the meal, the villagers begin to stir with more purpose, their morning rituals unfolding around you, a structured, predictable rhythm. The men, wrapped in thick wool cloaks, some with hoods pulled low against the still, chilly air, leave the hut, their heavy boots crunching on the frozen earth outside, presumably to tend to their animals. The distant bleating of goats and lowing of cattle echoing faintly from the rough timber pens, or to venture into the surrounding forest, their axes slung over their shoulders. The women remain, some beginning to clean, sweeping the dirt floor with bundles of stiff twigs, raising faint clouds of dust, others setting up looms. Their fingers already, you watch them, observing their quiet efficiency, their unspoken rules, trying to understand their routines, their lives, their intricate dance with the land. Then, the gray-bearded man who rowed you ashore enters the hut, his large form filling the doorway, letting in a gust of cold air before he closes it behind him. He moves with a quiet authority, a stoic calm, his gaze direct, assessing the work to be done. He speaks to you, his words gruff but not unkind, a series of clipped, accented sounds accompanied by a clear gesture towards a pile of rough, undyed wool, still clinging with the faint, earthy scent of sheep and lanolin. You understand. You are to work. You are to contribute. Your hands, though still raw and sore from the ship, struggle with the unfamiliar task, fumbling with the fibers, tangling the nascent thread. The wool is coarse, shedding fine fibers that float in the smoky air and make your nose itch. But the work is quiet, repetitive. You focus intently, trying to mimic the smooth, practiced movements of the other women, your brow furrowed in concentration, your lips pressed together. The rhythmic hum of the wheel, a low, steady drone, begins to fill your ears, a new, gentle rhythm replacing the violent slap of waves. Hours pass in this quiet, rhythmic task. The sun climbs higher, casting stronger, though still pale light, into the hut through the smoke hole, painting shifting stripes on the dirt floor. The air inside grows warmer, pleasantly so, a profound luxury after the constant, biting winds outside. You are surrounded by the quiet hum of the spinning wheel, the gentle, constant clatter of the loom, and the soft murmuring of the other women, their voices a low, unintelligible melody that weaves into the background. It is a world away from the harsh realities of the ship, a different kind of prison, perhaps, one defined by monotony and lack of freedom. But the old man, weakened by his cough, is given a lighter task, mending fishing nets by the fire, his gnarled fingers expertly weaving the coarse twine, his breath still catching sometimes. The young woman with the doll is also put to work, helping with the weaving, her small hands moving deftly over the threads, her eyes distant. A silent understanding passes between you, a shared sense of grim acceptance, a silent acknowledgement of your common fate. You are not free, but you are not actively dying. You are simply existing, enduring, and working, bound by the necessity of survival. Midday brings another simple meal of dark, dense bread and a thin vegetable stew, its warmth a comfort against the cold. Its humble fare, mostly root vegetables, like turnips and parsnips, and perhaps a few grains, but it's warm and filling, and your body gratefully accepts the nourishment, absorbing every calorie, every drop. You eat in silence, listening to the crackle of the fire, the distant sounds of the village, the rhythmic chop of an axe from the forest, the distant cries of gulls wheeling overhead, the lowing of cattle from the byre, sounds that are slowly becoming familiar, replacing the sounds of your lost home. As the afternoon wears on, a sense of monotony settles in, a slow, steady rhythm that begins to lull you into a strange, detached state. The spinning is tiring, and your fingers ache with the repetitive motion, the constant pulling and twisting of the fibers, but the lack of immediate threat, the absence of constant, paralyzing fear, is a profound relief, a quiet mercy that soothes your frayed nerves. You begin to observe the intricate details of the hut, the simple tools hanging on the walls, worn smooth by generations of use, the crudely carved wooden bowls and spoons, the woven patterns on the wall hangings, the way the smoke curls. The lives of these people, though undeniably harsh, filled with unceasing labor and struggle against the unforgiving elements, seem to hold a quiet dignity, a resilient strength that you slowly begin to admire, even in your captivity. You learn, slowly, implicitly at first, then more directly, that this village is a remote trading post, isolated and small, a place nestled deep in the northern wilderness. It is a place where the Vikings occasionally stopped to resupply, to exchange goods, to offload plunder, and to acquire new labor, new lives. You are not sold, not directly, in a bustling market square, not branded. You are exchanged, a commodity in their harsh world, a silent transaction, a part of the tribute or trade that maintains a fragile peace. You are bound to this new life in this strange land, serving these people, your new masters. The realization settles with a dull, heavy thud in your heart. It is not the raw, burning despair of the ship, the desperate fear of immediate death, but a cold, gray resignation, a slow, creeping understanding of your fate. You are safe, for now. You have food and shelter, but you are also utterly, irrevocably without hope of return. Your old life is gone, irrevocably, consumed by flame and swallowed by the indifferent sea. You are a prisoner, a servant, in a world that is not your own, a world where your past means nothing, where your identity has been stripped away. Night falls, bringing with it the familiar chill, though it is less severe here than on the open ocean, the hut providing sturdy shelter. The fire is built up, its flames licking higher, casting dancing light across the faces of the villagers and prisoners, and the hut fills with a comforting warmth, a deep, pervasive heat that soothes your aching muscles and penetrates your weary bones. The air is still smoky, a constant haze that makes your eyes water slightly, but the scent of cooking meat, thicker tonight, richer, more inviting, makes your stomach rumble fiercely, a profound hunger that has rarely been fully satisfied. You are given another meal, this time a hearty stew with small pieces of meat and root vegetables. Its flavor, it's the most substantial meal you've had since your capture, and you eat it slowly, deliberately, savoring the warmth and the flavor, feeling the food settle in your stomach, a comforting weight that brings a deep, almost painful satisfaction. You feel your strength slowly, incrementally returning with each bite, a faint thrum of energy in your tired body. As you eat, you listen to the villagers, their voices a soft cadence of unfamiliar words, a steady hum of conversation that flows around you. You try to pick out familiar sounds, to discern meaning, to connect with them in some way, but it's largely unintelligible, a foreign symphony that you are not a part of. You are alone in your understanding, a silent observer in this new strange world, forever separated by language and fate, by the chasm of your past. The old man's cough seems a little better tonight, less strained, more infrequent, a sign that the land is kinder. The young woman with the doll sometimes hums soft, mournful tunes as she works, ancient melodies of her lost home, faint and sorrowful, and occasionally she catches your eye and offers a small tentative smile, a flicker of shared humanity that warms you more than the fire, a fragile connection, forged in shared suffering, a silent understanding begins to form between you, a bond that transcends language, a kinship of the broken. You are not alone in this. Sleep comes more easily tonight, though it is still restless, punctuated by your own lingering cough, and the unfamiliar sounds of the village filtering through the hut walls, a dog barking in the distance, the lowing of a cow, the shifting of livestock in their pens. You lie on the dirt floor, feeling the warmth of the fire on your face, the subtle movements of the others around you, their soft breathing filling the quiet. The sounds of the ship are less frequent in your dreams now, replaced by the mundane sounds. The passage of time becomes a blur, marked only by the shifting light outside the smoke hole and the subtle changes in the air. The seasons begin their slow, inexorable march. The biting cold of the sea gradually gives way to the deeper, more profound, yet strangely stable chill of a northern winter. The landscape outside the hut transforms, blanketed in a thick, pristine layer of snow that covers the harsh ground like a shroud, muffling all sound, turning the world into a quiet, white expanse. The wind howls, a mournful lament around the sturdy walls of the hut, a constant reminder of the world outside, vast and untamed. Your life settles into a rhythm, a cycle of repetitive, demanding tasks that fill every waking hour. You wake with the dawn, often before it, to the chill, that still permeates the air before the fire is stoked. You eat a simple meal of porridge or coarse bread, chewing slowly, mechanically, and then you begin your duties, spinning wool into thread, the drone of the wheel, a constant companion, your fingers growing calloused and quick, helping with the weaving, the shuttle clacking rhythmically as you pass the weft, sometimes carrying water from the frozen well, the bucket heavy and cold against your numb fingers, the ice shards tinkling within, or gathering firewood from the edges of the forest, your breath misting in the frigid air, the axe heavy in your hands. The work is hard, your muscles always aching, a dull, constant throb, but it is regular, predictable, and it ensures your survival. There is a strange, quiet satisfaction in the completion of tasks, in the feeling of your body growing stronger, more resilient, adapting to the demands placed upon it. Your hands, though still calloused and rough, permanently marked by the brutal journey, are no longer raw and blistered. Your cough, too, slowly begins to recede, leaving only a faint tickle in your throat, a memory of past illness that no longer consumes you. Your body, surprisingly resilient, begins to adapt to the harshness of this new existence, toughening, growing accustomed to the cold and the endless labor. You are becoming a part of this landscape, this life. You learn a few words of their language, enough to understand simple commands, to ask for water, to identify objects, to understand the basic needs of the household. The initial confusion gives way to a rudimentary understanding. The villagers, though not overtly kind, offering no warm embraces or words of comfort, or not cruel either. They are practical, pragmatic, focused on survival. You are property, yes, but valuable property, a worker, and they ensure you are fed and sheltered, kept healthy enough to perform your duties, to contribute to their small community. The old man's health, though never robust, improves slightly, enough to keep him working at his nets by the fire, though he remains frail, a permanent rattling cough in his chest. The young woman with the doll sometimes hums soft, mournful tunes as she works, ancient melodies of her lost home, faint and sorrowful, almost inaudible, and occasionally she catches your eye across the hut and offers a small, tentative smile, a flicker of shared humanity that warms you more than the fire itself, a silent bond of shared loss and quiet endurance, a fragile connection forged in shared suffering. A silent understanding begins to form between you, a kinship of the broken, the displaced. You are not entirely alone in this strange, new world. You learn about their gods, their customs, their simple ways. They are a people tied deeply to the land, to the sea, to the rhythm of the seasons. Their lives dictated by the harsh cycle of their lives are hard, filled with unceasing struggle against the unforgiving elements, but also with a quiet strength, a deep-rooted resilience that you slowly begin to recognize in yourself, a tenacity that has been forged in the crucible of your own suffering. You watch the children of the village play, their laughter echoing, surprisingly bright in the cold air as they tumble in the snow, their rosy cheeks glowing with health, their eyes bright with innocence, unaware of the brutal world that brought you to their shores, or the life you once led. They are growing up in this harsh, remote place, their lives shaped by its demands. You sometimes wonder if they will ever know a life beyond this remote, demanding existence, if they will ever see a world beyond this valley, this forest, this small, isolated community. The longing for your own home, your own family, your lost life, never truly leaves you. It is a dull, persistent ache in your heart, a phantom limb that throbs. You still see their faces in your mind's eye, hear their voices, feel the warmth of their touch, the texture of their clothes, the sound of their laughter. But the images begin to fade, growing fainter with each passing day, each passing week, becoming less a sharp memory and more a distant dream, blurred by the relentless present, by the overwhelming reality of your new, unchanging existence. The details become less sharp, the colors less vibrant, the voices less clear. You are no longer the terrified, helpless captive dawes onto a ship, barely clinging to life. You are a survivor. You have endured hunger, cold, profound fear, and brutal hardship. You have found a way to exist in this new, unforgiving world, adapting to its demands. The softness of your old life has been stripped away, layer by agonizing layer, leaving behind a core of unexpected strength, a resilience you never knew you possessed. You have changed, fundamentally, irrevocably. You are still an outsider, forever marked by your foreignness, by the silence of your past, but you are also a part of this small, isolated community, bound to them by the strange twist of fate that brought you here. You are a shadow in their lives, a necessary one, a silent presence that contributes to their survival. You dream sometimes of the sea, of the endless waves, the howling wind, the creak and groan of the longship, the bitter taste of salt on your lips, the dizzying roll of the deck. The dreams are vivid, terrifying, plunging you back into the cold and the fear, but they too begin to recede, becoming less frequent, less potent, replaced by the more immediate realities of your days. The feel of rough wool between your fingers, the bite of the axe on wood, the warmth of the fire on your face. One night, as the snow falls softly outside the hut, blanketing the world in a profound, hushed silence, you sit by the fire. The last light of the day, the rhythmic hum of the wheel, is a soothing sound that fills your ears, a steady, constant presence. The aches in your body are familiar, a quiet companion, no longer screaming for attention, but a dull, comforting presence. You glance at the old man, now truly asleep by the fire, his breathing even and shallow, a fragile piece on his deeply lined face. The young woman with the doll is also sleeping, her face peaceful in the flickering light of the dying fire, her small doll still tucked beside her, a testament to her enduring spirit. You are all survivors, bound by the cruel hand of fate, sharing this small, smoky haven, finding a strange comfort in each other's presence. The future remains uncertain. Will other Viking ships arrive when the ice breaks in the spring? Will you ever truly be free, ever escape this land? Will you ever see your home again, or what remains of it? You don't know. The answers are beyond your control, beyond your reach, locked away, and you are alive, and in the vast, unforgiving world, for a prisoner, a captive, for someone who has endured so much, that is everything. It is enough. The wind whispers around the eaves of the hut, a soft, mournful sound, a voice from the outside world, a lament for what has been lost. The fire crackles, sending sparks dancing towards the smoke hole, brief, brilliant pinpricks of light in the deepening darkness. Before winking out, you close your eyes, letting the sounds of the night wash over you. The distant howl of a wolf, a wild, lonely cry that echoes your own quiet despair. The gentle, incessant fall of snow, a soft blanket upon the world, covering all pain, all memory. The quiet breathing of those around you, a rhythm of shared existence. You are here, now, and as the warmth of the fire slowly lulls you, embracing you, you drift into a deep, dreamless sleep, enveloped by the quiet solace of survival. The long, hard journey finally ending in the stillness of the northern night.